All right, good day. So, we thought it would be of value to discuss a framework and considerations when evaluating opportunities. Because recently, James had a friend of his reach out and effectively convey, we did field for suggestions, but just convey that she found herself in this predicament where there's a really compelling business opportunity and how one could go about navigating or just one's perspective on the best ways to navigate novel opportunities. Things that may not be as straightforward as they seem. So, yeah, man, I guess shoot me, just to kick it off, I think this whole episode, this whole conversation is really just a framework about decision making, if we're just really going to distill it down, right? Because whether it's the decision to accept an opportunity, the decision to put money into Ass Coin or Keisha or Shiba Inu or Bee's Knees, whatever the hell it is, you know, there's a process to making sound decisions, I think. And yeah, so first and foremost, perhaps, I think something of value when assessing if a decision is sound or not to take an opportunity is are you entering into that decision with a clear desired outcome, right? Because if you don't know what you're trying to get out of the potential opportunity, how can you really assess if those opportunity costs are worth it, right? So that just is a foundation. Go ahead, jump in.
Yeah, I mean, on that, I mean, if you don't know, it's kind of like trying to get somewhere, never having been there without a map. Like if you don't know what the intention behind what you're doing is, and you're surely not going to get there. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. I think also in potential opportunities and ventures and from business to other things, I mean, you also need to do the best that you can to be unbiased, and you have the capability to break your bias by first and foremost maybe taking in more information, taking more information about the potential opportunities that are out there, similar opportunities that run parallel to what you're being offered or what you have the capability to do, looking at market trends. If you're talking about crypto, you're talking about stocks, you're talking about finance, you're talking about anything like that, but then also, let's hone in on a business opportunity for a second. So if the decision is, hey, you're working at company A and company Z wants you, okay, there's a lot of things, tangibles and intangibles, that you have to weigh, but we can't give you what those are because that has to do with what you're trying to get out of a job, what a job fulfills for you. But just the same, if you're an employee right now and you're thinking about going out on a venture, or you're out on a venture right now and you're thinking about being an employee for somebody else, there's a lot of things that go into making that decision. But most of it, and actually I would say maybe all of it, on the front end comes back to you figuring out what the hell you want. I want certain things that maybe you don't want in a venture. Maybe I'm okay with working for someone under these stipulations, and you're like, hell no, I'm not dependent on anybody else, period, end of story. For money, I'm going to control everything up front because I don't trust anybody. Who knows what that is, but I think you need more information regardless. You need to figure out if the opportunity outweighs the opportunity cost, which first you need intention. You need to understand what you want. Then you need to weigh the opportunity against the opportunity cost. Then I think you also need more information, because I believe that a lot of people make decisions that are not sound, because then they add in a fourth thing, and that's emotion. If you make a decision while you're mad, you're happy, you're sad, you're glad, and you're expecting something beneficial to come out of it, you're almost surely going to be wrong, because you're acting more on impulse than you are on logic.
Yeah,
you don't have to be rational in everything you do, but it might be advisable to try to pull your emotions out, try to pull some of that bias out of it before you make a decision.
Yeah. What's interesting about you even saying that is it seems very contextual to the opportunity, because some opportunities inherently might be more emotionally driven, like the outcome. So let's say somebody is in they're in a bad relationship, or the relationship has stagnated. Well, two immediate choices are they stay or they go. And so that is primarily driven by the emotion. But let's say they live together. Let's say that one has a car and the other one doesn't. Let's say, you know what I'm saying, just all these different variables. And so it's like, then which one do they value more? The fact that they might feel more emotionally whole or complete if they were to leave the relationship. But then what if they actually would feel even better if they stayed in a relationship, but that would mean the relationship would have to change in some way, shape, or form. And so then that's when, to your point, getting more data, getting more information, and trying to provide an exact framework for that. Let's say maybe you start with maybe writing down the information that you have about the situation, right? Write down what you find, what you see as the problem, because if you don't even really have articulated what the problem is, it might be way harder to fix that problem because you might be really fixated on something that is a tangential auxiliary component of the main problem and never have traced it back to what that root problem is. So when you're fixing it, it's kind of like these, these doctors out here. Mind you, doctor is a word for alteration or changing, manipulating. You might be treating a symptom of the situation versus the problem. And similarly, when somebody wants to, let's say in that business example, let's say you started a company and then you have somebody offer to acquire you. A lot of times in businesses, they are looking for an exit, right? Which basically means they started the damn thing so they could sell it for hella money. And so if the first thing top of mind is that money, well, is there a number two? Maybe the money's good, but what if the person is going to basically come in and then completely take all the integrity out of the business that you began? Or they're completely going to throw the mission statement out the window. You started this thing to help, put shoes on kids' feet, and they're like, actually, we're just buying your company because we like your tech. We're not going to make shoes for these kids anymore. Now it's like, damn, but they have that one component I wanted, which was the money, but the purpose behind it. So then maybe that's a more of an emotional tie of I did this to be fulfilled, partly by putting shoes on these kids' feet. And I can sell out literally and get the bread, but now that mission the whole reason I started is going to be gone. So that's kind of one of those opportunity costs. And so if you don't really know what's on each side of that equation, what's on the starting place where you're coming from, and then what's on the side of the person trying to buy you out, what do they want? Because having that additional information, if you know what the counterparty wants, the person who's providing the opportunity or putting you in position for the opportunity, if you don't fully understand their position, it makes it more difficult for you to negotiate and bargain to get the things that you want. So maybe if you don't realize that it's not that they're against putting shoes on the kids' feet, but they see that some sort of way, shape, or form, they think it's going to detract from their core business model, well, then maybe you just need a little bit more information about how their core business model is functioning so that you can make a pitch or just say like, hey, stipulation, y'all got to at least keep putting shoes on 10 of the percent of kids' feet, feet.
Done that a few times.
Right. And I'm wilding, man. I must be delirious or something. But yeah, so it's just like the whole decision-making process. I think there is a component of using your intuition. It's like your logic is necessary, but don't over-logic it and then ignore your gut feeling, as they say. Because sometimes that gut feeling is honestly going to steer you in the direction of what the ultimate outcome is going to be. And then you go through the logic step just to be like, okay, this was my gut feeling and the logic backs it up, right? And sometimes, but I think there was a study or apparently there's been a lot of work done in this field that usually the decision that people wind up making is the same whether they make that decision in 2 minutes or they make that decision in 2 years. It's often the same decision that they arrive at. So, and this is particularly like a tip for people who are in business for themselves or have to make a lot of decisions, but this idea of make the decision as fast as possible. Because usually it's going to be the same decision no matter what. And you actually just cause yourself more stress by worrying about how to make the decision. And then it's like on a test. Your first answer is usually the correct answer. And then when you second guess and you change your answer, you usually made it wrong. Or you had a better shot at being right with that first instinct. And I think with decisions, that's often the case. And so taking too long to think about it can really just make it more likely that they make the wrong decision. Which may seem counterintuitive, but a lot of things.
And I don't know. When I'm talking about emotion, I'm more just talking about don't make an impulse decision based on an emotion that you're feeling that's fleeting.
Yeah.
I think it is perfectly fine to trust your gut, and I think most of the time I don't really live my life with logic. It's more of what feels right. Okay, does that make sense logically? Is that going to actually set me up there? Cool, it is, or it might, or it has a higher probability to do that than not. Okay, I'm running it. That's kind of it. But I mean, more so, not acting in anger, not acting in extreme, like on the extreme side, the outliers of anger, excitement, naivete. There's a lot of emotions that you can be feeling. There's a lot of ways that you can be feeling that could be detrimental because they negate you looking at a lot of things that you should look at. But a lot of that would also just be fixed by you just trusting your gut too, and auditing the logic of it real quick, and then move. A lot of people spend a whole way too much time pontificating and sitting around, feet up. Let me journal this for the next 47 days. Why? If you want to do something, look at true capacity. Okay, most people don't know what true capacity is yet. You will soon know, and you will never forget. But right now,
talk that shit.
You don't know what it is. This idea came from a business venture, a joint venture with two other people that did not go the way that I would like it to. We split amicably, and within 2 weeks, because of me being put in a position where my feet were on the coals, I sped up and made a decision faster to figure out, where I was going with the personal training and management of personal trainers down that path. So it is interesting because that decision to completely pivot aggressively with sole proprietorship over a new venture happened in less than a month. And the creation of the entity, the website, the payment processing, the signing of the first trainer all happened within 30 days. Where the last venture that I was in, I was with them since August and we didn't do a damn thing from August to it's May. So from August to April, we did nothing. I have the reins of this other thing. In 30 days, I get everything set up to the same level that we had it when I was over there. And they were working on it for 4.5 years. Having the idea that you're just going to go for it, comes back to another episode that has probably already been released by now on confidence. You have to just go after it at some point. And I think that trusting your gut is a very good thing to do in this scenario when you're looking at a big move or a big shift. But also, sometimes if you can have your cake and eat it too and do both at the same time, I would suggest it. I would not jump to a brand new venture. We have talked about this before, tips for starting a business. I would not jump to a brand new venture unless you have sustainable income, because you will run your bank account dry and then you'll be worried about the roof over your head and you'll be worried about the food you're putting in your stomach. That's probably not a good stressor, and like there's method acting for a reason, but if you don't have to do that, I would honestly try to avoid that. You can make a sound decision without uprooting everything you're going and jump in a different direction. The necessity here, though, is that you're decisive with your action in one way or another. I think that, indecision will kill your idea, and that idea might just find somebody else.
Yeah, well said. So in summation, any decision is going to have a logical component to it, intellect, right? It's going to have an emotional standpoint. How is it going to affect your emotional stability, right? It's either going to be net beneficial or it's going to be net negative, right? Some people, they look at great opportunities, but that opportunity is going to bring along with it metric tons of stress, right? And for that reason alone, that might be why somebody walks away from it or does not accept it, because the trade-off is not worth it. The amount of money, the whatever else comes with it, company car, the whatever the fuck, is not enough to compensate for that stress, for that pressure. Another form of that emotional stability is how much of your fate is in somebody else's hands, right? So that's something to consider. And then just the downstream effects it's going to have on relationships, on your network. Some jobs, some opportunities, they require you to move. They require you to isolate to some degree. Or some are going to put you in situations maybe socially. I guess that's the other way, is that it's a social factor to consider with the decisions. But ultimately, what's going to best inform making that decision is having some sort of compass, some sort of North Star in terms of your desired outcome. And if you don't have a desired outcome, then that might be a result of not really knowing what you want, which can be one of the same, and not knowing what you want is often a result of not knowing who you are. or where you're at. Because who you are is going to change, right? It's like you are you, but you when you were 2 is different than you when you're 30, right? So where you are
Or we'd
at,
hope so.
or we'd hope so, right? You have a big diaper. But yeah, I mean, who the fuck are we? We're just sitting here sharing our perspectives, and because sometimes I get frustrated myself. I'm like, damn, could I make a PowerPoint to what I just said and it be a blueprint? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I think it's just one of those things that has to be explored, and every opportunity, every decision is going to be a unique one, but you're definitely going to have to consider some factors, and I think we talked about several factors that would have to get considered.
We did, and I think it's funny you say, "Who are we?" It's interesting. Rogan the other day was talking about the vaccine and a couple other things. Did you hear about that?
All I saw, he's like, "I'm a fucking idiot. I don't know shit."
Literally, he's like, "I'm a drunk comedian." And look, we're not drunk comedians. We're not comedians. However, we are literally 2 dudes in our mid-20s that are sitting down to have a podcast, taking our private conversations public. So take everything we say with a grain of salt, or take everything we say with the highest level of severity, or take none of what we say in any format and turn this off. At the end of the day, what I'm really just trying to communicate here is that we know some, we don't know all. We know very little in the grand scheme of things. Listen to us or don't, but don't come at me sideways, because I don't really know that much, honestly. So,
doing our goddamn best.
Yeah, we're just trying to explore. That's all we're doing.
Hell yeah.
So,
that's all I got.
Yeah, we'll probably wrap it there. Pretty short episode. But yeah, appreciate y'all coming out, and look forward to hearing us, 2 dudes that don't really know what the hell's going on, next time. Thanks for coming out.